This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. This is Kalaw from the New Era University ASEAN Studies Center. Today, we're honored to have as guests in the program former Civil Service Commission Chair Ricardo Saludo and former Development Academy of the Philippines President Tony Kalaw, and we will be discussing the impact of the results of the recent elections in the government bureaucracy. Welcome to the programs.
Hello,
Mr. Saludo, Tony Kalaw.
Welcome back.
Okay, welcome back. Because I remember more than a year ago, there used to be a memorandum of agreement between the DAP and the Net25 for the holding of this program, ASEAN in Focus. So hopefully we'll be able to renew that again. Okay.
I hope so.
Mr. Saludo, Mr. Kalaw, so what is the impact of the recent elections in the government bureaucracy? You used to be president, you used to be chairman of the Civil Service Commission.
I would think many people now in the government are gearing up to resume many programs that might have been suspended during the election because there is an election ban. Those whose the staff of defeated candidates will have to be moving out, and those that are brought in by winning candidates will come in. So they'll have a lot of learning to do, especially if they're new to the office. That's one thing that our group that we set up, Sensei, the Center for Strategy, Enterprise, and Intelligence. That's one of the things that we hope to provide new officials and their staff. You know, how to be productive and effective in government.
So those who will be affected are basically the staff of the local government officials and those graduating from or defeated in Congress.
Yes.
What about the regular bureaucracy personnel?
Well, the great majority, of course, of the bureaucracy are career people, and in their case, they'll be now assessing the new priorities of the people who have come in. Now, some of them have been around for a long time and were there before, so they would be having the same policies. But the new ones will have new perspectives, new priorities, and even some of the old ones, they tend to also think of something new for the next 3 or 6 years.
Tony, you used to be president of the Development Academy of the Philippines, and I remember one of our programs was to conduct trainings, especially for those newly elected
we had
officials.
some crash courses for some politicians before, and some of them are really personalities like Senator Bong Revilla,
Manny Pacquiao,
this Sara Duterte, and Vice President Leni Robredo. No? So what happened there was they were the ones who approached us, and we developed a course tailored fit for them, together with their family and staff. And it's more of an introduction to what they are supposed to be doing. And it was effective in that sense that they were able to anchor on certain learning points which they actually were able to use in their areas.
And do you think the AP is still continuing that program?
Yes, I think the AP, although I'm retired from government now, and I'm now with Sensei, and we're also offering the same thing. There are several service providers for capacity building for politicians and career people. One is the Development Academy of the Philippines, the UP NCPAG, the Ateneo School of Governance, and now the private sector in the Sensei, where I recently joined them, actually.
Our own approach would bring in, on the one hand,
this is the Sensei. Once again, the Center for Strategy,
Enterprise, and Intelligence.
So this is a private organization.
Yes. And as the acronym
Sensei means
teacher.
That's in Chinese and Japanese.
So we're actually precisely trying to put that across. Anyway, the approach we take is twofold. No, on the one hand, you have people, the bureaucracy and the leaders want to know the mechanics of government, and one might say a similar thing is provided by the academic institutions. But the other thing we provide is what we call strategic thinking, strategic advisories. You know, the time that especially I was in government, I was the cabinet secretary for many years, and then I rose to civil service chairman. We, all that time, were responding to crises and issues that come up every day. But in a way that is strategic, not just putting out fires as many people try to do. You know, there's some issue, you try to dampen it. No, we think in what are the strategic goals of the government? What are the strategic goals of a particular leader? And how can you best address these issues so that the goals are achieved? Yun po yung, that is how we approach. So it's more than, you know, it's more than just responding knee-jerk, but really looking at the
more proactive.
Yes, and the long-term strategic goals.
There are two key words in the thing that Sensei is doing. One is strategy, long-term, no? Long-term, and then broken down into actionable things. The second one is learning. Strategy and learning. Strategy cannot be implemented if you don't. If you just rely on your present stock knowledge, you have to continuously learn the ropes. No? So that's where we sort of input for innovation.
Isn't that problematic when it comes to governance, that you get elected first before you try to learn how is it to be an elected official?
It can happen that way. I mean, it has happened that you know, you're so focused on the election. When you do win, then it's only then that you really, you know, focus on the governance. And I can understand why sometimes people might be like that, because, you know, you may feel you don't want to waste your time on crafting a grand program of government when in fact you might be defeated. So just win first and then somehow move fast on the governance. So we're quite happy to assist and help in that area, because on our end, we've gone through this process, and we have in fact a lot of research already on how issues should be addressed. So even if a candidate comes to us and says, I've won, but I haven't really put together a program, well, we can help them do that.
Final word.
There are two kinds of people who go see us, or who went to the AP, for example. Those who were preparing for an elective position, and therefore they enrolled. The other one was they won first before they got into enrollment. No? Whichever is this, the important thing is their own realization that it is not enough. While they have the stock knowledge, it is not enough for them just to anchor their what they intend to do on what they know. You have to really be
although personally, as a public administration educator myself, I tend to look at it in a certain negative manner, because you're aiming for this position, you should have prior preparation for this position.
That's the ideal thing.
But this is how our politics work here in the Philippines.
One of the people who went through the AP was Senator Bong. Senator Bong
Revilla.
Before he became Vice Governor of Cavite, he came to us. Before he ran for governor, ganun din, nag-aral muna. Before he ran for senator, that's also what he did. Before, not after.
Even so, the more ideal scenario would be, of course, I hope you will agree with me, the more ideal scenario would be before you aim for an elective or a government position, you should be prepared for that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That's the ideal thing. Sometimes there are time constraints. I mean, for instance, take Bato de la Rosa. I mean, he was busy with the PNP. Then he had to work with the corrections, and then he dropped the correction. He resigned and ran for office. Now, how much time did he have to prepare?
Okay, before and final question, what's your comment on there was this bill supposedly filed by the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, who said that any elected official should be at least a college graduate. What can you say about that?
Well, it's a good idea. Of course, it has to be put in the Constitution.
Okay.
You cannot do it by legislation alone. The Supreme Court will immediately shoot down adding conditions or qualifications to any office that is not in the Constitution. If you add something, it will be taken out. In fact, they struck down a law before, a provision in the law that required drug tests for candidates.
Yes.
They struck it down. Why? Because it was imposing an additional condition for candidacy.
But that should be a requirement.
Yeah, I think, well, it's debatable. One can debate it.
But rationally, that should be. I think that should be a requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, and any final word, Tony, before we...
Well, the important thing in people winning elections is that you have something that you'd like to do for the country.
Okay.
And you need strategy for what you intend to do, and you need capability. So that's where institutions like Sensei, DAP, UP, and the others come into the picture.
Okay, we will talk more about a host of issues, especially those related to the Center for Strategy, Enterprise, and Intelligence, and or Sensei, when ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition returns.
Is our most important asset.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria.
Imparting learning, no? Tony, in fact, having joined us, that's really his department to really come up with courses and trainings that would advance the learning of our clients.
Who are your clients, Tony?
Well, we have pipeline projects with the Department of Energy.
So it's government?
Among
others.
Both,
Okay.
yeah.
We have private clients too. No? Initially, Sensei was more on research and consulting.
Okay.
When they got me in, I think a year ago, we developed training and educational programs. So it's a mixture of research, consulting, training, and education.
So you're bringing your experience from DAP?
Yes, in a way.
How many years
43 years.
43 years.
But 11 as president.
On the advisory side, it's what I bring in is my own experience, both in media. I was editor with Asia Week magazine, looking at public affairs and how, the impact on society and on governments. And then on the other hand, my work during the Arroyo administration. Most of my years there was as cabinet secretary. And so I would every day look at issues and events that happen in the country and provide advice to the president, how the cabinet, how the government should respond. So it's really immediate but strategic response to issues and incidents.
Sensei was founded by Rick and Gary Olivar.
Gary Olivar.
So Gary is an economist and a business, a financial consultant, an expert. So we have the combination. Both of us are communications also. So the communications part and then the public policy part in terms of Rick, sa akin yung public administration. And then si Gary yung financial and economic. So gandang kombinasyon.
I used to be the office of president also for more than 10 years. I was assistant secretary. For the information of our viewers, can you please differentiate what's the difference between a cabinet secretary and the executive secretary and the head of the cabinet secretary is the head of the presidential management staff? No, it's a different.
Well, there was a time when the PMS head and the cabinet secretary was assigned to one person. Under President Arroyo, that was split. I was the cabinet secretary, and my job is to coordinate, document cabinet meeting, and to issue directives and monitor them. So it was really kind of the nerve center of government. We would plan the meetings, document them, issue the orders, and monitor the implementation. The executive secretary is essentially the right-hand man of the president.
The real president.
Issuing, and his job is really to coordinate both on all sectors, not just the cabinet. The cabinet, yes, but the politicians, even the military, really a pretty broad range, which as cabinet secretary I didn't have to do.
PMS.
And the head of the presidential management staff basically plans the activities of the president, and the other function it has is to provide complete staff work, proper grounding in research and information for the actions of the president, including appointments. So they're the ones who would research the background of people being considered for government positions.
And they retain that structure now?
I would think so. I mean, PMS certainly is structured to provide complete staff work. The executive secretary, I think Secretary Medial Dea still backstops President Duterte that way. The cabinet secretary now, Secretary Nograles, I would think does the same thing, and in fact he briefs media on actions by the cabinet. Now President Duterte had a special assistant, Bongo, and he was functioning almost like PMS head, although he did not take that title.
The name of your organization, Center for Strategy, Enterprise, and Intelligence. Let's focus on the word strategy. Because I've been talking to, Tony knows this. We've been talking to academicians, politicians, etc. And one common observation was the Filipinos seem to lack the strategic thinking. We don't have that discipline. Do you agree with this, and why?
Well, I think that the problem we face here is both environmental and historical.
So you agree that we're not strategic
There are
thinkers?
challenges to it. Now I'm not saying we're not capable of it, so I'd like to think we are capable of it. But there are factors that tend to push us away from it. On the one hand, our environment. We live in a country full of disasters, and that tends to discourage long-term strategic thinking, because you may make plans and then suddenly a typhoon comes in and destroys everything. So that kind of made our people over the centuries, I mean, over a long period, to be not so keen on planning ahead, because you don't know the vagaries of the weather. And then on the other hand, our colonial past robbed us of really long-term power. We didn't have long-term power. We were always under some colonial leader. And so it also again doesn't pay to make doesn't play to make long-term plans, because you don't have the power anyway to implement it. When we finally had power during independence, our democratic system would take out presidents and other officials after every 4 years. So
now 6 years.
Or now 6 years, and that tends to limit again, planning.
So you think only up to 6 years. Tony, you agree with that?
It's okay, 6 years, but in the case of government corporations, they now have a 1-year thing.
Yes, that's another
because of that law 10149, where the appointment is really for a year, and then you are on a holdover capacity. How can you think strategic if
you may be gone after 1 year?
After 1 year, you might not be there anymore. No? Structurally, may ganun.
So it really affects our nationhood, the lack of strategic actions.
Well, the good thing is we've got 6-year development plans, and I think in many of our programs, especially those involving foreign international bodies, we have to come up with a long-term plan. So there is movement toward that, but as I said, the personality of our nation, because of environmental and historical factors, and our system of elections every 3 years, as well as what Tony mentioned,
for
1 year, 1 year term for
the law.
The governance
doesn't encourage
law for the
long-term
government
thinking.
corporations.
So there's really no room for.
But that's where I think entities like Sensei help, in the sense that we will be focused on the long-term plan. We will provide advice that keep those plans moving forward, even if our client might be really caught up in short-term issues.
Yeah, but the problem is. You really cannot come with a long-term plan, because once you're out of office, the new occupant of the office will come up with a new plan again.
Well, it's kind of like this. Government organizations, whether they're national agencies or government corporations, they have, you call permanent employees, the career people. Okay, it's the career people, especially the level of the career executive service officers and the middle managers. They provide the continuity, and the politicians who are appointed and those who have this 1-year term and all these things, they are supposed to provide the vision. Mission is more or less constant, because it's derived from the mandate of the organization.
The function should proceed from that mission.
So what might change is the priorities, but in terms of the mission, there's a constant objective somewhere there. No? So what might change lang probably is the vision of the one who is in power.
And is that healthy in the long run for a corporation, for a government corporation?
Well, the 1-year period definitely is not. No. Now, one would think that it is possible to come up with a plan, and succeeding administration can at least continue parts of it. Because if you come in new, it's hard to just junk everything and start from zero.
And remember that the new entrants, usually, as we were talking earlier, they do not have the skills, they don't have the capacity to really run an organization.
They will tend to use what they can. No? Now, one thing I would say, certainly with the Duterte administration, they came in with a long-term plan. What was the long-term? Build infrastructure. That's obviously long-term, and it has long-term impact. Revise the tax system so that to rationalize it and generate revenues to fund the infrastructure. Federalism, to devolve power and funds to the region. Again, that's one of their plans.
Yeah, but there's the danger that the next administration will cut all of this.
Well, if they are able to change the constitution, then it's there, it's set.
Okay.
They also want to fight crime and terrorism and violence and drugs. Now that's obviously a long-term battle. Now that's the one that can be changed, and a succeeding administration may decide this is not a priority.
Yes.
The previous administration didn't give it priority. I don't recall any State of the Nation address by President Aquino where he made a big thing of drugs.
Okay.
And so whether or not that was a good thing, all I'm saying is it wasn't as much a priority with him. His priority was more fighting corruption, which is also a priority for President Duterte.
Part of the learning that we're trying to advocate to both the career and the how do I call it, the politicians, or those appointed, is the concept of building blocks.
Okay.
You cannot just start from a vacuum. You have to build on what happened, whether good or bad, from your predecessor. That's what we call the building blocks. No? And capitalize on the good things that happened during the previous term and build on it. You just cannot ignore what happened. You have to really build on something.
Okay, we will talk more about the different issues surrounding the need for long-term strategic planning for government agencies when ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition returns.
Sa gitna ng dilim, ako ang mata sa sahing papawid. Ako ang dilan sa tuwing ang bayan ko ay tulog ng mahimbing. Ang aming buhay handang ialay para sa bayan. Kayo'y handang maglingkuran.
Join us in celebrating the 72nd anniversary of the Philippine Air Force.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Okay, welcome back to ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition, and we still continue our interview with former Civil Service Commission Chairman Ricardo Saludo and Tony Kalaw, the former President of the Development Academy of the Philippines. So we were talking about strategic thinking, and we agreed that Filipinos really lack a culture of strategic thinking. So what can we do to instill this culture of strategic thinking among us?
Well, certainly training and courses, modules would help. No? Perhaps the other thing that is crucial is for leaders themselves to promote that.
To become strategic
thinkers. Because, I mean, during our time, President Arroyo, she was a strategic thinker. She wouldn't get all caught up in the brickbats of media. She would focus on what needed to be done. For instance, she pushed the fiscal reforms, which boosted government revenues. If she just thought short term, she would have stopped it. Because when these things were passed and introduced, it was the height of the political crisis during her time.
Yes.
It was 2005. And yet she pushed for it because she valued the strategic impact. So if you have leaders who actually are strategic in thinking, then it also promotes it.
But she had the luxury of 9 years.
Yes, and she really made use of it to push long-term goals, even if in the short term they would be problematic.
Yes.
No, that I think that's the key. That you are willing to sacrifice short-term difficulty to get long-term impact. Yeah,
Tony,
we sort of combined in Sensei at least the strategic thinking part where you have a long-term goal. But we all know that while we are at it, there are things that are happening in the short term, and most of them are crises. Crisis in the sense of crisis in the environment, crisis in the, a lot of things.
Actually, that prevents us from developing a culture of strategic thinking.
One of our interventions there is crisis management.
Okay.
So while you have short-term problems, we need short-term solutions, and yet
you don't lose sight.
It's still yes, that's right. Still focused on the strategic direction. So the combination of strategic thinking, crisis management, but the other important thing is communicating it. You have to communicate your strategy, the long term, and you have to communicate also effectively the short-term solutions. Otherwise, people will get derailed.
Yan ang problema sa Philippines. Government, actually, communications. But anyway, it seems that our strategic orientation is 6 years?
Well, that's the term of the president.
Okay.
It's actually longer. NEDA has a
2040
vision.
That was developed actually during the time of
Aquino. But that's what I meant by continuity and building blocks. No? I'm glad the Duterte administration sort of they adopted it actually, and it became the blueprint of the strategic thing. No, and yet they devised, they came up with their own priorities, which is now on stream. Sinama na doon.
Why can't we be like our neighbors, China, for example? And in terms of ASEAN, you have, of course, you have Vietnam, you have Thailand. They had a king. They have a king actually, and Malaysia and Singapore. Why can't we be like them? China.
Well, first, I think, I mean, when I was in Asia Week writing for the regional news magazine, pretty much the level of economic planning is about the same. What is different is the political power or form of government in each one. In China, you have a rather established long-term government that does not have to bother with elections. I'm not suggesting that we adopt it. I'm just saying that, of course, leads to longer-term planning.
We're a democracy,
you can't get around that. No. Now, in other ASEAN countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, all of them, for the longest time, even Japan, had one party in power the whole time.
Okay.
Decades. The Liberal Democratic Party in Japan, the Barisan Nasional in Malaysia, which only got defeated last year. After decades, People's Action Party of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, the Kuomintang Party in Taiwan, only recently defeated. So you've got, even in the countries that were democratic, decades of rule by a single party. No, so that again helped to promote long-term.
And here we have the president and the vice president coming from different opposing parties. So there's really something wrong with...
Well, not wrong, but it's a different situation. Yeah, it's a different situation where...
Which is not conducive to
democracy limits the period. Whereas you have in other countries really, you know, decades of rule by a single party. Of course, you had others where there was a strong man as well. South Korea was under Park Chung-hee for decades. No, yeah.
So it was beneficial to their economic trajectory.
Yes, it certainly helped. No, now in our situation now, there is a lot of concern over President Duterte being a strong man, but one also gets a sense that perhaps Filipinos do want somebody who can exercise that kind of power, and perhaps for a longer period.
Which is really Asian, right?
It is certainly Asian. It's certainly Asian, and I think what Filipinos might be seeing is they're seeing our neighbors and seeing the progress there, and wondering whether their approach, which has put strong governments in place for long periods, whether that approach might be better.
Okay, Tony, there was this statement by former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Sabi niya, the problem with the Philippines is we have too much democracy.
Yeah.
So, do you believe that?
We're more concerned of getting everybody to agree on something, the consensus type, no? Where compared to a one-party, well, there are pros and cons to it, no? I think it's okay to have a multi-sectoral view of development,
things,
for example, but if the process is such that once you talk and agree, then that's it, no?
That's the riotous process. So, we have too much democracy? Or we're still a very young democracy suffering from the pains of
I
democracy?
think we've had long enough time to work with democracy. At this point, what we perhaps just need is a mechanism to just make decisions and get on with it. Right now, you have a president who's very popular, so the decisions he makes are carried through. The legislature cooperates with him. You kind of had a similar thing to some extent under Aquino and under Arroyo. So we're probably moving towards a government that is more unified. You still get critics and you still get a lot of, you know, naysayers here and there, but the budget was somehow passed, although it took so long. That shouldn't have happened, but it did. But hopefully that won't happen again. I think
both houses of Congress should be supporters of the administration.
Yeah, I think they've learned their lesson, hopefully. That was just such a dumb thing. You know, we have the infrastructure program is moving forward, and you even have tough decisions like closing down Boracay to clean it up, you know, and other environmental.
And those click with the people.
Yeah,
in
people
terms of
support
communication.
It. You know, I mean,
they
you know, obviously there's a pain involved, but the good thing is our people are saying, yeah, you know, we'll take the pain just to finally fix. And notice these are strong, long-term strategic actions. You know, cleaning up Boracay sacrificed short-term tourism revenue to achieve long-term environmental as well as tourism benefits, because if you clean up the place, it will attract more people.
They're not doing it in Manila Bay. Well, so hopefully, the one thing that I think is a positive thing with regards to the recent elections is the thing about the dynasties.
Okay.
You didn't need a dynasty law to, you know, to get some new people there, no?
Well, we don't really expect Congress to pass anti-dynasty laws.
You know, I've always thought, and this is one. Sorry, I have to switch this off. Yeah.
So we don't really expect Congress to really pass anti-dynasty laws, because they will be affected.
Yeah, but this election was something. It was
the people themselves who really took it upon themselves to affect the fall of some dynasties.
And this is where you know, people are worried that federalism may lead to dynasties being strengthened. It might actually be the opposite, because if you have regional governments controlling the funds and the power, then the people will be more serious about electing them, and they will not tolerate, you know, dynasties that do not perform.
Okay.
The dynasty is not the problem. The fact that some of them tend to underperform. And you may have a situation where people will compare how their region is doing via another region, and they're just going to wonder.
There should be healthy competition among
regions. So there'll be that.
We will talk more about the thing, federalism, and many other issues related to it when ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition returns.
kababayan at kababayan po namin sa Middle East and North Africa, masayang balita ang hatid po namin sa inyo. Ang Net25 ay makakasama nyo na sa inyong mga tahanan. Mapapanood nyo na ang inyong mga paboritong programa sa pamamagitan ng OSN, ang pinakamalaking entertainment network sa buong rehiyon. Sa Channel 725, maihahatid na namin sa inyo ang mga pangunahing balita at mahahalagang impormasyon. Kaya makisaya, makisalo tuwing umaga at panoorin ang mga programa ng mga hinahangaang celebrities and OPM artists, same day as the Philippines. You can also watch Net25 live and on demand anytime, anywhere on any mobile device on OSN Play. Kaya tawag na sa OSN to learn more on how to get Net25. Sa Net25 on OSN, siguradong at home ka dito.
Letters and Music, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 1:00 hanggang 2:00 ng hapon.
Welcome back to our interview with former Civil Service Commission Chair Ricardo Saludo and former Development Academy of the Philippines President Tony Kalaw, who are now connected with the Sensei, or the Center for Strategy, Enterprise and Intelligence. Before we ended our last block of interview, we started to talk about federalism. So how do you think federalism will help us, develop as a country in terms of strategic thinking, in terms of enterprise development, etc.?
Federalism was really meant to give the people through the regions, the countryside, more funds and more power, and actually also more democracy. Picture this: if the most important, most powerful figure in government is the president, your vote is 1 among 40 million.
Okay.
So it doesn't count for much. In fact, our presidents are elected by only 40% or so. Yeah.
Plurality,
so in
There's
fact,
no
they're
majority.
minority presidents.
Yes.
Now, in a region, you are 1 among maybe 5 to 10 million voters. Ganun ka dami, no? And so your vote actually counts much more, no? For the regional officials, no? 2, may reklamo ka, you have a complaint against the government. You don't have to go all the way to Malacanang. You will go to your regional capital,
which is nearer,
which is obviously more responsive, more accessible. No? And then 3, one would think, in the running of a region, the people living there are more knowledgeable than anybody in Imperial Manila.
They have better say on how their affairs
should be run. And so I think all of this will make for better governance. Now, this is not to say that there won't be any problems in the shift. There will always be problems in any change.
Yes.
Even from martial law to democracy, there were problems. So we face the problems, but the idea is there are longer-term benefits that really give the people the capability to. Even elections, they will be watching local elections. Whereas government, presidential elections happen in Manila, And of course, there are doubts about some of the
talk about that
mechanisms.
The credibility of the recently concluded elections. Tony, what's your take on federalism?
Our brand, our particular
form of government.
Mode of federalism is a combination of top going down and down going up. Okay, why did I say that? Because you have the regions. Okay, traditionally, when you talk about federalism, it is states federating. In our case, it's somehow the other way around. No? But hindi din, because the tendency now in local governments is for them to amalgamate, to regionalize. What is lacking really now is the regional structure. We have a regional structure, but only at the national level. You have regional directors, but there's no regional government which is duly elected. So that's the one that's... so we're trying to combine now the decentralization, the devolution from above, and the amalgamation of local government units. Like sa Metro Manila, you have the LGUs with the Metro Manila metropolitan setup.
Yeah, related to your comment, I've read this position from the University of the Philippines. Their subsecretary would say that we don't really need federalism per se because we are already federalized. It's just in the name. The regional governments are actually a form of federalism. The local governments have enough power to really run their affairs.
Well, that's their view. We think, I mean, if that is true, why did Bangsamoro ask for more autonomy?
Yeah, except for Bangsamoro.
Well,
yes.
I remember I asked Senator Nene Pimentel.
Yes.
If the problem is only Mindanao, then why do we need to federalize the whole nation?
Well, but that's because the problem is not only Mindanao.
Okay.
All the other areas can benefit from greater autonomy. If it's good for Mindanao, why can't it be good for Cebu, for Bicol? But the opponents of federalism just don't want constitutional term. They're so wedded to that constitution, which was, by the way, written by a committee appointed. It was not written by a committee elected
by the people. So they were really not representative
absolutely
of
not. Except that, of course,
yeah.
Cory Aquino's popularity carried it.
The thing that you were mentioning about regional setup, it's administrative.
Yeah, pero sabi, the local government units, the local government chief executives just really have to make use of their powers which are in the local government.
At the moment,
they're not using that correctly.
Well, federalism hopes to give them even more.
Okay.
Now, is that a good thing? Well, we can debate it, but my sense is, as I mentioned, if they control most of the funds and the programs and services in the region, if you have a problem, you don't go all the way to Malacanang. You go to your regional capital. That's a far better setup than having to plead with Malacanang to give the local government more money. So, this is a no-brainer.
Plus, there will be competition among the regions. So,
yes.
That
the
will
better
really
the leaders,
yeah.
the region,
I mean,
the
here
better
I am.
the
My
regions will
region
be.
is going nowhere.
Okay.
I look across the border, and that other region is.
So there's something wrong with your leader if, if your region is fails behind. Okay, so we go to the question of leadership now, and you mentioned earlier the issue on the credibility of the past election.
Well,
what's your comment on this?
The President Duterte, has asked COMELEC, as you know, to drop Smartmatic. We've had Smartmatic elections since 2010, four of them, 2010, 2013, 2016, and this year. And all of them have had major technical glitches. Now, here is the problem. If there's a technical glitch, the experts will debate whether the glitch was major or minor. We, the people whose votes are being counted and whose right to vote is affected, we cannot participate because we don't understand computers.
Yeah, we don't know what happened in the machine.
There is no way.
There was a break
we
of
just have
7
to hope
hours.
that these guys get it right. So the system that Senate President Soto favors is
hybrid elections.
You count manually, so you can see. Yeah, you can see what that your vote is counted correctly, but the transmission is electronic.
Electronically, because that's
so
faster.
what will happen actually is they will count the votes. The counting is there on the screen, but it's actually being recorded in the on a laptop. After it's done, the laptop will print the results, which everybody sees.
That's hybrid.
Yeah, and then that result will be signed. Now, the laptop will transmit those results electronically, and the scanned, signed ER will be posted online so everybody can see it. So, in fact, if you have enough people and enough equipment, you can tabulate the whole election just from the the online postings of ERs. Everything so transparent. But no, they want this box, this machine that cuts, and it will not actually add a lot of time, just an extra day. And surely in one day you can count the votes in one precinct. But no, they want that highfalutin system, and thankfully the president has finally said that's it.
Can the COMELEC actually just unilaterally drop the Smartmatic?
Oh, well,
yes, they can do that. I mean, basically they won't use the system.
Or COMELEC?
No, COMELEC.
COMELEC.
Yeah.
They can do that.
Yeah, they can just simply, we won't use this anymore, we use a different system.
Okay.
Congress can mandate it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Congress can say the future system shall have a counting technology that is visible and transparent to ordinary people.
Okay.
Because right now the system is not transparent to ordinary people. You're just hoping your vote was counted properly.
Okay, so maraming issues so sadly we lack time. Any final word, Tony? Any final word on to our viewers about your Center for Strategy Enterprise?
Well, we're 4 years old, right? 5 years?
Well, actually 9. It was 2010.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be doing research and consulting. Now we have training and education, which is the capacity building part. And now we're into helping out, joining the others in the field, like the AP, UP, and ASOG. And we're providing an alternative to, because the market is so huge.
Yes, yes. And we need your services in order to finally develop our brand of democracy. Mr. Saludo, final word.
No, the work we do, we'd like to think helps improve governance by, on the one hand, provide capacity building of the people we train, and at the same time, useful, timely, and strategic advice to those, especially those in office. That's what we've been doing for many years now, and those interested in that kind of advice, which is born out of really over a decade of providing exactly that same advice to the Arroyo administration on my part. That's the kind of advice also we can offer.
Okay, so we have here 2 former senior government officials, and they still want to continue to give their share in nation building through the organization they're in now. That's all, folks. Thank you very much, Mr. Saludo. Salamat, Tony. Okay, that's all, folks. Thank you very much. I'm Kalaw Tabunda, and I'm 1 with 25.